I just finished 1 year on the carnivore diet, and I honestly can't believe I made it this far. I originally started carnivore for 2 reasons. First off, I was having a really hard time losing that last 20 pounds of baby weight, and I was using like traditional methods, calories in, calories out, normal diets that are out there. And also, my husband was badgering me to try it for like 6 months, try the carnivore diet. So I decided to get him off of my back and try it for just 30 days. I just committed for 30 days, and then that turned into another 30, and now here we are at the 1 year mark. So it has been a series of ups and downs for sure. It wasn't a linear path for me. I didn't just start eating meat and then I just lost a shit ton of weight. It didn't work out like that for me. I did have some ups and downs. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about what I learned in that 1 year period in the hopes that some of this information will help you to avoid some of the mistakes that I made. So let's jump right in. Before we get started, I wanted to thank today's sponsor, Element Electrolytes. Element Electrolytes has everything you need and nothing you don't, with 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium to help keep you hydrated and to keep you operating in tip-top shape. Electrolytes are especially important in the beginning of carnivore. When you're first starting that first few months, I always recommend to everybody to do 1 packet of the raw unflavored element right when you wake up in the morning, and then that can help mitigate any of these keto flu symptoms. They also have a bunch of really good flavors. If I was to do a flavored one, I would do either watermelon or the mango chili, sweetened with stevia, between 1 and 2 grams of carbs per packet. Right now, they have this awesome little box here. This is chocolate. So it's chocolate mint, chocolate chai, and chocolate raspberry. This is really good to like make a hot chocolate or something like that. Limited time, so if you want to order a box of this, I would say do it, because when they're gone, they're gone. If you'd like to try Element, you can use my link in the description, and with any order, you'll get a free sample pack. This way you can try out all of their delicious flavors before you commit to a full box. Also, if you are already a lover of Element, I strongly suggest getting a box of this. It is so good. So head over to my link. It is drinkelement.com/Jenny Mitich. That's DRINKLMNT.com/Jenny Mitich, and get your free sample pack with any order today. The very first lesson I learned is that my blood glucose levels are much more stable on carnivore. The way that I know this is I wear a continuous glucose monitor. I started using the app NutriSense in September of 2022, so I have 3 months of continuous glucose monitor data from before I started carnivore. And that was actually one of the things that I thought would be really interesting to measure that first month that I was on carnivore. I was still wearing the continuous glucose monitor, so I was really interested just how different my glucose levels would be. My average glucose is lower, my variability is lower, my average sleep glucose levels are lower, everything is lower. So that has been really fun for me to see in the data. If you're interested in trying a continuous glucose monitor out for yourself, here is a couple of tips. You have to get a prescription from a doctor or from one of these continuous glucose monitor apps. If you decide to go with NutriSense, there's also Signos, I think is January AI one, Levels. They do have subscription plans where the continuous glucose monitor prescription is included in it. Now, you can also get your doctor to write you a prescription for a continuous glucose monitor. I personally was able to get a doctor to prescribe me a continuous glucose monitor using an online doctor. So I went to pushhealth.com. It's a $65 consultation fee. And I had already been using a continuous glucose monitor, I think through the NutriSense app, so I was already acquainted with it. I knew I wanted the Freestyle Libre, and I just let the doctor know what I needed, and then I got a year's prescription for continuous glucose monitors. So now I get one sent every 2 weeks, and I pay $80 per sensor. So it is a bit pricey, that's for sure, but if you have the monetary resources to do this for even just a month or 2, I think it is well worth it. I will link NutriSense in the description because that's my favorite continuous glucose monitor app. That is the one that I use still to this day. I think it's the best. I would love to be sponsored by them. They are amazing. And I will also put a link to the Push Health that I talked about so that you can get a prescription if you would like to try one. The next lesson I learned is the importance of getting enough protein. So there's a couple of pieces to this one. First off, around month 4, I started feeling a lot of fatigue, and I was really, really, really worn out all the time. Like, I just had no energy. I couldn't go to the gym. I could barely get out to do my walks. I was just wiped out. And then my hair started falling out. I was really freaked out. I thought, man, is this a thyroid issue? Is this a hormonal thing from, I had just had twins 18 months before, and I just looked around. I asked my doctor, we did blood tests. She thought it might be long COVID, but I had never had COVID at that point, so I didn't think that's what it was. And then I was just doing a search on YouTube for some videos about it, and I came across a couple, one from Dr. Ken Berry, one from Laura Spath, and then there's another one, I'll link them in the description below, talking about something called telogen effluvium. Telogen effluvium is when your hair follicles go into a dormant state, and then they fall out a few months later. And it is triggered by many things. It could be death in the family, some kind of major stressor. It can be caused by, major surgery, bariatric surgery, C-section. It could be caused by a large weight loss or an extreme diet change. I think what triggered it for me was I had lost 15.5 pounds in 3 months, and I had switched over to a completely different way of eating with the carnivore diet. So my hair had started falling out. I did see, though, that not getting enough protein could have played a part in the hair loss. Your hair is a protein, and it's not like a high priority one for your body, though. Your body wants to prioritize keeping you alive. So, it's going to try to keep your internal organs running and all that stuff. Your fingernails, your hair, yes, that's protein, but if you're not getting enough protein in your diet, it'll deprioritize hair growth and fingernail growth in an effort to keep you alive. So I looked back at my FitnessPal, because I track all of my food, and I saw that there was a lot of days where I was getting like 70 grams of protein, 90 grams of protein, and that is not enough for me. So I upped my protein to 130 grams per day, and about 2 or 3 days later, I really started feeling better physically. I wasn't as wiped out. I didn't have that fatigue. Now, as far as the hair loss goes, that had already started. That was triggered by the weight loss and by the change in diet. Probably also thrown in that I'd had a C-section 18 months before, but I think it was mostly just the diet and the weight loss. There wasn't a lot I could do to slow that down. At that point, your hair follicles have already gone into a dormant phase, and they're just going to fall out. So you just have to kind of wait it out. But my tip from all of this whole process here, is make sure you're paying attention to how much protein you're getting from the get-go. It's very easy to let the protein go to the wayside because you're like, oh, I'm eating animal products, I'm definitely getting enough protein. That's not necessarily true, especially if you are eating really high-fat meats like ribeyes and stuff. You're getting more fat than you are protein from that. Especially if you're eating one meal a day. If you're eating one 24-ounce ribeye, you also have to kind of look at adding a little bit more protein. So now I make sure to get 130 grams of protein per day. That's my minimum. I like to take my ideal weight, which is 130 pounds, and I take 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal weight. That's how I get my minimum. It's going to be a little bit different for you probably, but make sure you are getting that minimum every single day, or at least most days. And that is going to help to cut down any feelings of fatigue, and hopefully it will stop this telogen effluvium from being too bad in the first place. Now, telogen effluvium does not happen to everyone, so don't be freaked out. It also doesn't just happen to people on carnivore or keto. That's also another thing. This can happen with bariatric surgery, it can happen with vegan, it can happen with any extreme diet change, any extreme stress on the body can do this to you. So don't be super freaked out or anything. Just make sure you're getting enough protein, and that's going to take care of a lot of the issues that I ran into early on. The next lesson I learned is that for me personally, I feel best when I'm eating 2 meals per day. I like to eat in the morning, so I eat around the time that my boys are eating, sometime between 8:30 and 10:30 in the morning. And then I eat my final meal of the day by 3:30 or 4 p.m. at the very latest. Now, the reason I like to do this is because then I'm going to get a solid 16 to 18 hour fast in every single day. And when I'm eating this way, the weight just falls off of me. When I'm not eating this way, when I start to creep up that dinner time, 5, 6, 7 p.m., I find that I do not lose weight as quickly. I also don't feel as good. So this is a mealtime cadence that works really, really well for me. And going into year 2, I'm going to be sticking with this 2 meals and the meal timing pretty strictly because it works so well for me. The next lesson I learned was that dairy is not my friend. I love dairy. I love cheese. I love heavy cream milk, ice cream. Dairy is delicious. But every single time I include dairy in my version of the carnivore diet, it slows down my weight loss. I also have some physical symptoms. I feel a little bit bloated, and I have some mental symptoms too. I don't know if anyone out there has experienced this, where I just kind of feel a little bit bogged down, a little bit tired, a little kind of bleh, when I'm eating dairy. So I have to avoid dairy pretty much completely. I will admit I do have dairy a couple times a month because I love it so much, but every time I do it, I'm kind of like, That's one of those food groups that I just keep to a minimum, and I feel a lot better when I do that. And that moves into the next lesson, is that I feel my best when I'm doing strict carnivore, so no artificial sweeteners, no dairy. When I'm just doing meat, seafood, eggs, and butter, man, I feel really, really good. And just recently, the past couple of months, I've made it back to the gym. I am now strength training 4 to 5 days per week, and I have a lot of energy. So that's, been something that I've learned over the past year, playing around with artificial sweeteners, seeing if I can do them, playing around with the dairy, seeing how I can incorporate it and all that stuff. But I've learned that strict carnivore is how I am able to feel my best. The next lesson I learned is it's not as simple as just eating meat and then you lose a bunch of weight. Sure, that can happen in the beginning, but you also have to look at a few other factors. So stress, sleep, and physical activity. If you're super stressed out, you're not going to be losing weight, especially if you're like chronically stressed. You could lose a little bit of weight, but it's going to be harder because your cortisol levels are so high. Your body's just in like total crisis mode all the time. It's not going to release its fat stores, The next one, sleep. If you're not getting good sleep at night, and if you're like a night shift worker or something like that, it's going to be much harder to lose weight. We are meant to sleep at night, and we need 7 to 9 hours of solid, good sleep to really run at an optimal level. And, I have twin toddlers, so I'm woken up several times a night. But for me, if I'm not asleep by 10:30 p.m. at the very, very latest, I'm not going to be at my best the next day. Let's just put it that way. So sleep is something I've really had to dial in. And then finally, physical activity. So for me, I do daily walks. I love walking. And then I just said, I started doing the strength training. So I think it's going to be different for every person, but humans absolutely need physical activity. We are animals. We are meant to be moving. We're not meant to be sitting all the time. And we're meant to be outside. Like evolutionarily, we were outside all the time, like an animal. We would have some shelter, but we were out hunting and gathering and playing and, doing all the activities we do. And nowadays, most people only go outside to go to their car and drive to another indoor area. So that's just something to think about. It's not just the food. The next thing I learned is just how many testing options there are out there to measure your metabolic health. One of my absolute favorite tests is the DEXA scan. So I had gotten a baseline DEXA scan in September of 2022, and then I got another one done at the 1 month mark, the 4 month mark, I think 8 months, and then I just got one at the 12 month mark. So I like to do it quarterly. And the DEXA is great. So it's just going to show the composition of your body. So, which parts are fat, which parts are lean, which parts are bone, the density of your bones. I really love the visceral fat reading. That is the fat that's inside of your body, like the trunk of your body around your organs. You really don't want to have much visceral fat. And I also love to see the, here's my baseline scan from September 2022. And here is now December of 2023. And you can just see the progress that I've made. It's really, really fun. They're anywhere between $60 to $150 per scan. I'll put a link in the description to DEXA's website so you can put in your zip code and see where you can get one. But I love DEXA scans. They are so much fun. Another thing I've learned just a ton about blood work. And I learned that you can order blood work online in most states. I live in Illinois, so I am allowed to order as many blood tests as I want online. So I use 2 websites. First off, typically I'm using ownyourlabs.com. They have everything I need on that site most of the time, and they use Labcorp to draw the actual blood. The other website that I have used is Ulta Lab Tests, and they are typically using Quest, I believe. But both are excellent. I will put a link to both in the description below. And if you have been watching my channel for any time, you'll know that I test my blood about once a month, and I share those results with you. I really like to to see exactly what the carnivore diet is doing to my blood work, and it has been so much fun. I strongly suggest getting your blood drawn at least once a year, and if your doctor's giving you a hard time about any of the tests you would like to get done, in most states you can just order those online and get them done yourself. And they're not expensive tests. An A1C is like $8, a standard lipid panel I think is $8 or $9. Fasting insulin I think is like $10. These are not expensive tests. So if you would like to get these done, if your doctor is not going to order them for you, order them for yourself. That is something that I learned in this year is you can order so many tests online. Another great thing that I think everybody should be getting done if they are over the age of 40 to 45 is a CAC scan. A CAC scan is looking for calcified plaques in your heart arteries. Takes about 10 minutes. It cost me $50 self-pay to get this done. I did not have to go through a cardiologist. I just Googled CAC scan in my area and the local hospital popped up. I was able to schedule it. So it took about 2 months to get the appointment. It took 15 minutes and I was able to get my CAC score. And I'm not even 40 yet. I turned 40 in a couple of months. So my CAC score was 0. That's pretty normal for people of my age, but I just wanted to get a baseline. So this is a scan that you would get every 5 to 10 years, especially if your LDL cholesterol numbers are high when you are eating a ketogenic diet. That can happen to some people. I am one of those people. I have seen my LDL cholesterol numbers skyrocket from time to time. That's another thing I've learned is that cholesterol levels are highly variable and dependent on a lot of factors. So I personally am not worried about LDL cholesterol, but I know my doctor was, as most conventional doctors will be, because that is what they're taught to be concerned about. You know, they want to prescribe you a statin. If you have higher LDL cholesterol numbers within the context of a ketogenic diet, I would suggest getting a CAC scan so that you can relieve some of the fear that your doctor may have from your blood tests. I'm also working on getting a CCTA. This is a scan that you can get that measures for soft plaques. So it's not just the calcified ones. There's also could be soft plaquing in your heart arteries. So the CCTA scans for that. Now that one, I have not had as much luck just finding that on Google, but I am working on it and I will find one this year. That brings me to a lesson that I learned that much of what is, conventional wisdom about health and nutrition is basically bullshit and not based on science. A lot of it is just garbage. And that's one of the reasons I think so many people are overweight, metabolically sick. Type 2 diabetes has skyrocketed the past 30 years. It's very confusing out there. I know for me, I thought I was eating a healthy diet, but the weight would not come off. It just was so slow. And it was very difficult to stay consistent with that healthy diet. And calories in, calories out. Oh, eat 1,200 calories a day, or eat tons of vegetables, or lean meats, or do what. There's so much conflicting information out there. And then there's so many people trying to sell you powders and supplements and just so much stuff. And it can be really, really, really hard to find high quality information. I'm an avid reader. I love reading. And there's a couple of books that really were big for me this year. The first one was The Big Fat Surprise. I read that book in a few days in the very beginning of Carnivore, and man, is that a well-researched book. It is very high-quality research. I strongly suggest reading that book, The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz. Amazing. And then later on, this book was released, I believe, it was just released this year, 2023. And it's called The Great Plant-Based Con. And there is some overlap between The Big Fat Surprise. In The Plant-Based Con, she references The Big Fat Surprise because that one was written first. But she goes into a bit more detail about the environmental aspect of, this whole narrative that plant-based is best and all this stuff. Like, it's better for the environment. Actually isn't. And then she also goes into the religious aspects of it and the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And if you haven't heard that story, man, it's crazy. You would think me just talking about it randomly that I was crazy, but very well researched. I learned a lot from that book. I'm going to link both of those books in the description below, along with a few of my other favorites that I have read this year. The final lesson I've learned is just how much better I feel on the carnivore diet. Now that I'm at the 1 year mark, I feel like I know what I need to do and have all of the tools that I need to get to my goal weight. I am very confident, like almost 100% sure that I can get to my goal weight in 2024. 2024. And I could not give you that same level of confidence with any other diet. I really feel like I've got everything dialed in. I could be eating those words later, but that sense of knowing what to do and having a plan and knowing that it works is so freeing for me. I don't feel like I'm chained down by this extra weight that I had put on over years and years, you know. I've learned just a ton, but I do feel a lot better on carnivore. Now, am I going to stay carnivore forever? I can't answer that. I've always said that I don't think carnivore is the only healthy way to eat. I think eating real whole foods and eliminating ultra-processed foods, vegetable seed oils, and sugar from your diet is going to do the job for most people. But for me specifically, I definitely fatten easily. I have no self-control, so I can't really have any of that bad food around me. I'll just eat it. And carnivore has allowed me to break that sugar addiction. It's allowed me to break that, carb addiction, and I'm losing weight and I feel really good, and my metabolic health has improved. So I'm definitely going to be staying on carnivore for at least another year. I'm going to try to do really, really strict carnivore in 2024 and see how that works out. Now, if you're thinking about starting the carnivore diet, or if you're in the first month or two and you're having some difficulties, I do have a place for you that you can get some support and some accountability. I'm doing monthly new carnivore challenges. They start on the first day of the month, every month. Right now, we are going through the January group. That group is closed off to new members, but we are accepting people for the next group. It is $50 for the entire month. You get full access to me and a couple of other longer-term carnivores. We'll answer all of your questions. We do twice weekly check-ins. We're doing weekly weigh-ins. I have a bunch of resources for you to help you do carnivore correctly from the very beginning. And then if you run into any issues, you just have to send me a message or post up in the group, and you're going to get your questions answered. So it's just a nice place to be able to do carnivore with like-minded people, with a group of people that are doing it all at the same time for the first time together. And yeah, it's been going really, really, really well. If you would like to get signed up for this, you can head over to my Instagram and send me a message over there and say you'd like to join the next monthly new carnivore challenge. Or you can just check out in the description. I'll have a link to a video you can watch there that has all the information you need to get signed up. It's been a heck of a year on carnivore, lots of ups, lots of downs. Obviously, by how long this video was, I learned a lot. And I hope that this video was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And with that, I'm gonna go eat a big fat juicy steak. So I will see you next time.